Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Zero to One. As you know, we started a new kind of Thursday series as well as our Wednesday one. And the Thursday one in particular has more emphasis on doing business in India, how exciting as a market it is, because we know that there's such a large proportion of what we call independent doers. So those who are entrepreneurs, founders, freelancers, or those who maybe have an ambition to do that in the future as well and chart their new path. So we're really excited this week to welcome Neeraj, who has lived that founder's journey himself, having worked in a corporate environment before that as well. And he will be sharing some of his learnings and tips and, of course, all the things to watch out for as well. So we're really excited to have him on here, and please do give him a welcome. Last of the things I mentioned before we kick off, as ever, because I appreciate there might be a couple of you that's new to the sessions. Please feel free to add any messages into the chat. If you've got any questions or thoughts, you can do that. Otherwise, you can also use the Q&A button at the bottom, and that will let you ask your question. Feel free to ask questions at any time, but we'll leave it with Neeraj, obviously, to decide as and when, maybe if we want to pause and have a thought on a certain topic or go through any questions right there. I know I've got a couple ready, Neeraj, so don't worry. Yeah, let's get started. So thanks again, and over to you. I'll stop sharing my screen as well.
Perfect. Thanks, Jamie. Let me very quickly share my screen so everybody can see. Is it visible now?
Yep, it's all there.
Perfect. One sec. Great. Thanks, Jamie, for this platform. Really excited to meet with fellow entrepreneurs as well as those who are already onto the journey and transition from their corporate job to essentially whether you want to be the freelancer or whether you want to essentially pick an idea and build something unique with that. I think I personally love engaging with the startups, the founders, entrepreneur, and find this platform, especially Doer Circle, very helpful for especially those who are thinking about it. I've been with known to Jemmy as well as a couple of other members from Doer Circle, being very helpful in my journey as well. And I'm just looking forward to exchange some of these learnings with this session. So with this, let's get started, right? Thank you so much once again. I know that most of you are from India. Very quickly, my name is Neeraj. I'm the founder and CEO at Thirdi.ai. A few years ago, I was in a comfortable corporate job and living a very predictable routine. Had a very great lifestyle as well. And today, I'm on totally different journey, one that's challenging, unpredictable, and deeply fulfilling. If you are here, I think you're probably thinking about making your own leap, or maybe you already have. And I want to share what really happens when you step off that ledge and how you can not just survive but thrive. Uh, Me, after 15 years working with some of the world's most innovative companies, where I've kind of built businesses from zero to one, multi-million dollar businesses, had a very exciting career. Uh, and I've realized that it is one piece that I was missing in my life and I really wanted to do. And that's when I've kind of taken the leap of faith uh, to moved out of my comfortable cushion to start what I really believed in. And I realized the biggest change wasn't just about leaving a job. It was about changing my mindset and taking the practical step that took me from there to where I am, and I'm sure there is a lot of forward looking learning that will happen. So I think I want to share some of these learnings that I have learned along the way to those who have started or who are thinking about it, on what you can be prepared well with some of the lessons I have learned. So the real shift isn't just in your job title, it's in your mindset. In the corporate world, success is about predictability and stability. And as an entrepreneur, it's about embracing that uncertainty, being able to venture out into unknown zone, learning and unlearning fast, and being okay with not having all the answers. While when you are in corporate, you are expected to have all the answer, you are expected to have all the plans ready for you to navigate. And I remember missing my monthly paychecks in those first few months. It was very, very tough. But over time, I built my own momentum. Every day became more rewarding as I chased my vision. And my advice to those, before you really jump on, one very important thing that you want to figure out is, know your strengths and your real calling. Start small, learn the ropes, and don't get caught up with the glamour of startups that you probably see in the newspaper or in the headlines. That are very few, and most of us here is kind of building step by step. And one of the things that I have essentially take my learning forward is that you want to be the entrepreneur first, right? Whether where you want to test some of these metals right in your company and pick some of the projects that allows you to build that venture within the company. And I was trying to doing the same thing when I was in Facebook or Flipkart or other companies, is to take up the project that allowed me to build ventures from the scratch, and that led me to essentially experience some of these muscles and being able to build those successfully, and that gave me a lot of confidence that now I can do it for myself. uh, so building something from zero to one essentially gave you the same sense of ownership and a lot of confidence that now you can do it for yourself. So it is something those who are at your at the mid of your career want to really try out by taking some of these assignments before you jump the ship and do it independently by taking that bigger risk, right? And that's something I really believe on. uh, the success in entrepreneurship is I feel like is not about just taking risk. It is about knowing the risk and your ability to mitigate, and these are the ways where I kind of understood what risk are you going to take and how do you mitigate. And one thing that really worked for me, which I uh, believe we all should really build towards when you are jumping into uh, from the corporate job to an entrepreneurship or building something, is develop your trusted network. Um, and I think as a first time founder, having that founder market fit where you start by solving a problem that you know inside out. So if you're a first time founder solving with something that you know best, the outside market will accept you more. They will trust you more, and you will probably check that box early on by getting some of those customers without having to do hard work. So and instead of going on to something solving uh, which is so innovative where you need to kind of create a new market, you want to start with that. And because that kind of gives you certain cushion net. Ask yourself, are you in the top 1% of people who really understand this problem, right? Which is very, very important, because it's not about taking risk, it's about understanding what risk are you taking, whether you understand the problem well, and are you the 1% person who can really go and solve that problem better than anybody else. And that's when you are able to build that venture, and everybody outside who is kind of looking at you, whether it's your customers, investors, or other stakeholder, can come in to support you, can come in to trust you that you are the right person to do this job, right? And the next piece is really which I understood, there are two ways to build and pick your ideas and pick your battle. One, you want to operate in a big market and solve a small problem, and that problem you really understand well, and therefore you can solve it really well. Or you solve a unique problem that no one else is tackling right now, you somewhere discovered, whether you want to go to the moon or build a rocket, which hasn't happened, and there's a market yet to build, uh, and you want to go and create that market. I think in my case, I actually picked the first one because I've realized building in a big market is usually much easier. But whatever you choose, get a get a clear on your why do you want to choose that. Why does this problem really matters to you, and why now? right? Whether you know all the risk before you kind of getting into this, whether you are the right person to solve this problem, you have all these skills, you have all the muscles to really go and do things, right? And I think don't fall in the love of with your idea. I think fall with the love of your customer's problem first, right? And then figure out what's the idea to really solve for it. And in the case of Third Eye, uh, where we started to where we are today is a very, very different problem we've started with. Our vision is same, but we've kind of iterated multiple times to solve the same problem in different ways. uh, so we got to keep iterating by listening to the customers and by understanding how the market is responding to the early solution. So I think these are some of the pieces that I kind of learned along the way. But as you move forward, right, once you have taken the step, you have the early idea and you want to commit to that idea, which is what we went with. The hardest part is, honestly, to me, is about building the right team and culture. And I think I'm still learning. As a first time founder, I've seen great teams, great culture in my career. Of the number of companies I've worked, they are kind of known for having a phenomenal people culture, and I tried to bring some of those lessons to my own startup. And I think on most of those things, I actually failed. And what really worked for us is, especially at the early stage where we are in today, and most of you are getting into or gotten into, is uh, is essentially don't invest a lot of time. I early on invested a lot of time thinking about culture, thinking about what kind of company who we want to be, but I actually realize it's worthless at a stage we are in. uh, I think it's about just bringing the right people in and treating them well no matter what. And that just they are the kind of people who will work for you, who will eventually define your culture, right? So treat people well. uh, no one wants to work with a jerk, right? Be that, I think, a person who kind of treat people first, give them an autonomy, trust them for doing the right thing, and give them all the resources that they need to do the job well. uh, and I think few other things that really worked well early on, in regards to this, is essentially, we've looked for, not just having a right skill and experience, but I think the fundamentally the most important thing becomes, is whether you have a passion to be the part of this journey, to solve this problem, and be in this journey together, just like how we are in, keeping everything aside, right? If you are faced with some hard problem, how are you going to react to those? So that passion is most important, and then comes the skill and experience. That's where some of our best hires have shown the path to, right? And we have taken our own time to hire. I think in most cases with our early hire, they actually transition from being consultant to become a regular full-time employee, and that's where both of us had that bridge created to know each other, and then decide to take that leap of faith. And that actually worked for us in most cases. What really didn't work for me is I'm not the kind of person. We were both, me and Anand, who's my co-founder, were the kind of person who believed in giving people enough runway to be able to, flourish and learn and perform. So we've initially had a bad hires, but we really took time to make the tough decisions, which is also one of the muscles, is good muscles to have, is to find out those wrong trends early on, and make your hard decisions, which now we have learned, and is something that I encourage you to also think about when you are hiring, because not every time you are making the right decision. More often than not, you have to make those calls. We've developed a culture. We were all remote. Even now we are remote, so it was very tough for us to build a remote culture. uh, one of the one of the early learnings that we had is, like, we worked in a remote companies who believed in early remote, the companies like Google or Meta, and we tried to replicate some of the processes, some of the best practices there, and we measurably failed, right? What worked in big companies doesn't really work in startup, right? So you have to find your own ways of what works, right? And be with that. So my key takeaway is, right, don't stress too much about culture early on. Hire for passionate people, be nice with them, and let them define your culture. And I think if you are able to do that, that's actually the foundation of your current of the company when you are kind of doing a 0 to 1 journey, because they are going to take you to the next level. Right. And then once you have that, right, you have the team, you have your idea, you're building a product. The next important thing is how you're bringing the demand, right? That's the most essential part, even before the product and everything comes on, right? I think what really worked for me, which is where uh, I found myself lucky to be able to and surrounded by some of the great people, being able to network globally. So my network, the thought leadership about my knowledge, about my domain across LinkedIn. So the trust I built it over years were my biggest asset for the early demand. So we've got our first customers even before the product was ready, because I was solving for something that I know inside out, so they trusted us to solve their problem irrespective of I build a product or not. And most of my early customers came from that network and trust. LinkedIn is still our main channel for demand generation. We spend a lot of time, energy, and money to essentially establish our thought leadership, figure out ways that we can leverage that platform, that community. uh, Community is a great support, right? I've been part of many communities, including Doer Circle, uh, many other in India. Uh, but I've discovered that it's a great uh, community to get support and have a fellow when you are kind of stuck behind the wall. You have somebody to go and talk and learn from. Uh, I've not seen success coming from in terms of demand generation yet on community side, but I think it's a piece that you want to go with, have a brainstorm with the community. They're always available to listen to you and to talk to you and give you the right advices uh, on every other matter, whether it's your personal finance as well as how to manage your company's finance. Storytelling is your superpower as a founder. Share not just what you do, but why you do it. People connect with authenticity. So build your tribe before even you build your product. Engage, get feedback, make your audience part of your journey. I think that will really help you get some of your early demand. Uh, and that is going to give you a lot of confidence, a lot of early validation to the problem that you are solving, right? So I think that's essentially some of the key learnings. I have some more topics to really touch upon, but I want to take a pause and say, Jemmy, if you have questions that are coming in, and if you want me to answer a couple of them.
Yeah, I think fantastic. Yeah, fantastic so far. Sorry, I'm tongue-tied there. Um, yeah, I think you've got a lot of really great learnings in there for people, and also I think sometimes, like you mentioned, like in an early phase, we can kind of get fixated on something that we think, maybe, especially I suppose if you've had that corporate background and you worked in a corporate environment, you kind of think, okay, what do we need to mirror what's happening there? And the reality is that some of those things build over time. So the question I was thinking about, I didn't want to interrupt your flow, was when you mentioned about how the team has kind of been built in a remote first capacity, and your learning was that you couldn't necessarily copy that same approach that you saw in the larger corporate companies. I was wondering, how did you end up doing it? And just before you do answer, there's somebody I met recently, um, who has a remote team, and essentially what they do is they're all kind of got their webcams on and they're dialed into something like Zoom, and then they have everyone's up on the screen in the sense of, then it kind of feels like they're in the same space, I guess, and they leave it open, have conversations, so it feels a little bit more like an office environment. I'm not saying that's the right way, so I just wondered how you're doing it with the team.
Yeah, no, I think great question. And I think this is one piece me and my co-founder Anand kind of debate a lot on how to establish this remote culture, make sure everybody feels the sense of team collaboration and the productivity is going on. And there's always this debate going on to what extent we have to go and track people, to what extent we have to really know what they are working and how they are working, right? And I think what we have learned is that it is best, at least in our case, and it might be different for every other industry that you kind of operate with, is goes back to, especially with the early team members, is being able to hire that right people, to really trust them for doing their job and hold them accountable for the outcomes and not for uh, the number of tasks and the activities and how long are you going to log in, because you really can't
Mm.
track, and that's not the right way. That I think is where the people deliver the outcomes, right? So I think what has really worked at the end of the day for us is that obviously we have a certain setup that allows us to function in a remote manner and collaborate really, really well, where we have established a culture of documentation where all of us collaborate well. We have a good enough setup where we can interact via the chat or VC communication. Those are the foundational. But when it comes to operating on a day-to-day basis, we stay away from having a very close look of the people of what they are doing, rather than we believe in to trust them, and we kind of set a monthly, quarterly OKR, and we understand that we help them understand this is what you are hold accountable for. As long as you kind of meet these outcomes, I don't mind your holidaying for the rest of the quarter. uh,
Fair.
because that's something that I don't want to spend time on tracking, and it's really hard. And we've actually uh, tested a few systems as well, and we miserably failed. People didn't like it. Number one, we also as a founder didn't want to do that, and therefore we decided, okay, that's the best way to operate. When you go to scale, right, then the problem becomes a different problem. There are certain processes, there are certain functions you want to have a certain ways to define that. But I think for large part of the way we operate is hire the right people, get them accountable to the outcome, and give them the freedom and ability to do what they need to do to deliver the outcomes.
Yeah, I think that's great to understand. And yeah, ultimately, if you're hiring somebody, you're paying them a salary, you really should be trusting that they're the people that you brought in to do the job in that sense. So yeah, I don't think it's ideal to have that kind of overbearing approach in that sense to that. But it sounds like you've got a good balance there as well. I think, because we know as well a lot of our members are freelancers, for example, and it can be
Yeah,
just lonely when you're working solo in that sense. So just being able to have
yeah,
the connection with the team, but also as you mentioned about different communities and things like that, I think that also helps too.
yeah,
So
yeah. And
yeah,
I
for
think I
sure.
think that's also an important part, because we also work with a couple of consultant freelancers. That having a team connection is important, but that doesn't get built on online by having a Zoom call. Uh, and so there's a right balance of how closely you want to track and how closely and what is the kind of freedom you want to give. So we have those business rhythm where you go and ask those hard questions for people to know and help them solve the problems that they are facing, and we try and bring along people together in a more physical setup, uh, maybe once in a quarter or more often, for people to know each other and get to understand who they are working with. So that part is also very, very important.
For sure. Yeah, we got a couple of questions in here actually, so
Sure.
I'll jump to them. So the first question, and apologies, like it's an anonymous attendee, so I'm not quite sure. Let me make sure sure I word this properly. But it says, can an ideation startup get funded? So I guess maybe if you're in the early phases, you've got the idea, like, is there a possibility to get funding for that?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I've been through this journey. I can tell you some of the practical pieces that I have faced, right? I think the first thing you want to understand that the market today is not easy when it comes to raising the fund, and and the and the metrics that the VCs or any investors is now evaluating is less on the idea, more on the business. It is where you really want to show the readiness on the business, the adoption of your customer, the potential for it to grow. That is where you're more likely. I've stopped seeing I've stopped seeing companies being funded at an ideas level. We went to the VCs at that level. I think what we were kind of accepted with is that we've got founders market fit. It's a great huge market, and it's a great idea that you're going with. But even with that, I think show us the traction, show us the business that you're really building up. But yeah, I mean, if you are one of those where your ideas are unique and somebody's found it to believe it, I think it's not impossible. But in most cases, I think it's more than the idea. It's about the business that you can potentially build, and your ability to execute is what they look for.
Yeah, fantastic answer. And actually, we had a gentleman on a couple of weeks ago, Dr. Amit, and he was talking about all the different kind of initiatives that are happening in India right now as well. If if the attendee asking was related to India as well. I mean, Singapore is another place, obviously, where there's a lot of investment in startups. I think it's the fourth ranked in the world globally now for innovation in that sense. But you don't always have to think about a VC either. There are a lot of other investors out there. There's angel investors, there are family offices, there are high net worth individuals. So maybe just an individual person who really believes in what you have to do. So you can chart other paths. There's accelerators, incubators. There are also great places where you can meet potentially co-founders or bounce ideas off each other, and you can
Apps.
kind of pitch your idea. So
Yeah, yeah. I think these are great way to make progress instead of running behind the VC funds,
yeah.
who's yeah. Um,
But I think you nailed it, Neeraj, as well, and what you're saying in that ultimately there's an element of an investor's going to buy into you and your vision, but they do also want to believe that there's some results that can be delivered. You don't need to deliver everything all at once, but you need to be able to show that there is a market potentially that is interested in this type of thing. So yeah, it's good to you can still do that, like in a short, go to your friends, go to your family members, see if somebody is willing to not invest in terms of invest in your business, but are they willing to purchase your service or your product, whatever it is that you're working on?
yeah, yeah, yeah. And
Great.
I
Yeah, we've
think
got
that
more questions coming in as well. Sorry,
go
Neeraj,
ahead,
come on.
go ahead. Let's go ahead. Let's go and take up some of those questions.
Yeah, sorry, it's me. I'll stop rambling on as well. We had a second question here. So it said, how do you generate leads when you're unknown in the markets? I know you mentioned LinkedIn. I guess it could be that, but it might be other things as well. And I guess what your business helps with that as well, right? In that sense. So it'd be good
Yeah,
to
yeah,
get a bit of perspective on that.
yeah. Sure. I think yes. Come and talk to us because we solve for it. But now that I'm here. I think it really boils down to the value that you are creating for or the value that you're offering to your customers, right? I think what I've seen, whether you talk on LinkedIn or you even if you go in front of your customers, it's very important to essentially exchange the benefit and the value that you are offering to the customers. That's one. And to talk about it, you really need to discover the platforms, the communities, the places where your customers are, right? In my case, my customers are a good part of my customers are on LinkedIn, and therefore I use that platform to talk a lot more. But there is also a segment of our customers who are not there. That is where I deploy different strategies, whether it's about going to different conferences, uh, finding out relevant industry uh, uh, events that's happening, community events that happening, where you got to be in front of them, talking about the solution that you can bring on the table to get that leads in. And it's not the easy part. I think that's the toughest part. The building a product and building a technology is much easier, right? And that's where I think not one single thing is going to crack and give you a multi-million dollar revenue. I think you have to try many different A/B tests to really discover what are the three, four things that really working for you, where you can expand and grow to, right? So that's a lot more generic answer, but typically I also advise a lot of my clients on this matter with those specific uh, areas that they are solving for and help you with that.
Yeah, great answer. And the thing is, the more you put yourself out there, it might not be that everybody you first connect with is ready for the service you have to offer. But if they know that you're a person that solves for it, then you can start to also generate inbound opportunities after that as well. So
Yeah,
you got to get yourself out there, as you said,
yeah,
go to events, share your building journey on places like LinkedIn. Um, you can use things like email. It's relatively inexpensive to get your message out that way.
Yeah,
Tap up your networks as well. So yeah, it's a
exactly,
good question.
exactly. Yeah, you just got to, make people aware that you're there and you're solving something.
Okay, we've got a couple more here. So one says, "Hi Neeraj, what role did community play in your early stage, and how did you build it?" So I guess a community under Third Eye in that sense, I guess.
Yeah, I think, let me think about how do I answer this question. I think in my case personally, right, the role that community played is, I mean, uh, I used to live in Singapore, and we had a huge community over there of ex-employees of Meta as well as Google who have been uh, ventured out and out of their company and started things. They were A lot of them were early investors, many of them were founders, many of them had exits and had a different journey, right? So I think, to me, getting that early insight into what it really takes to build something, how to go and raise funds, how to even build an MVP, uh, build a initial business plan, get some early finance advices. Those were very, very important pieces that you really want to uh, figure out, and that these are the things where the community helped me a lot. Uh, and you go and engage with and talk to them, and the good thing is they are always available to answer your questions. So and even now, I think now when I moved to Bangalore, there are many different communities that's been led by different people and different community owners, including Duo Circle, is where you can go with and have a debate on how do you enter Singapore market. That's a problem statement I go with, and there are many folks who have been successful with that, and they give you their ideas and thought process on what's the right GTM to Singapore. How do you think about the compliance in Southeast Asia? What are the data privacy? All of these open questions, as you are a first time founder and trying to figure out, instead of you doing it alone, you throw that problem to the community, and you know that there are people who have solved for it, and they come in front and tell you, let's talk about it, let's have a coffee on this. So I think that's where community plays an important role, where there are, more often than not, somebody has solved that problem. You just be open to and vulnerable to, throw your challenge, and they will come to offer their support.
Yeah, I love that. And you mentioned a few minutes ago about you use LinkedIn because it's where your kind of your tribe, your audience are the people that would use your solution. And I think that's the same thing. If you can build a community of like-minded individuals that do need that type of service, then they're going to help you along the way. You're going to get real feedback from them as
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
building,
yeah.
and I think that's exciting.
Yeah, and I think that's the other part probably you were trying to get a response on, is that if you're thinking about building a community to get your end customers in the door, that's a very different approach. I think I'm also trying to solve that problem. And one thing that I've learned is that when you're building a community, don't think about selling yourself, think about helping
Yeah,
them. Uh, and when you help them in the process, they will know and they'll come to buy your solution, right? It is how it functions. So it's a lot about what you can give and offer to them, and many of times you won't be taking this soon enough. So
yeah, you're right
that's
about that one. Definitely, yeah, I would say value creation, learnings are the most important parts, really. I
yeah,
think it's just, yeah, and like you said, being vulnerable enough to kind of throw out what you're working on, get people's thoughts, and again, if people are invested in that, either that industry or you as an individual, they will give you great feedback, which can help. I think it's a good way to learn faster.
yes,
Uh,
yes, that's right.
we've got another question. So it says, are VCs or other investors comfortable with founders taking out salaries? So I guess, um, yeah, that's quite a tricky question to cover, really, usually.
No, I think absolutely. I think in the modern era, they don't expect. I haven't met anybody who were opposed to this idea. They want you to lead a comfortable life and kind of uh, stay away from any distractions to take care of your family, and therefore you can give all the energy, all your attention to the company to build it. But that being said, you would want to withdraw the salary that's just enough for you to lead a comfortable lifestyle. That's what they are, I've seen they're okay with. And anything else for you to create the wealth, for you to have your luxury holidays, is where the company needs to pay for it. The company needs to grow and become profitable for it to pay in itself. But yeah, they're totally okay in most cases that I've seen.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to eat, right? You've got to keep a roof over your head in that sense, and
Yeah,
and I think as long as you're being, as you said, reasonable with your expenses, then I think
yeah,
that's only fair. And
yeah,
I've seen a few horror stories out there. I think we're slightly beyond that point. We're probably talking probably about 5-10 years ago. See the big Silicon Valley companies where people are suddenly paying themselves like huge salaries, and they're sort of loss making businesses and things like that. But nowadays investors are very sharp on that side of things as well. So as long as you can show
yeah,
your financial model, I think that helps too.
yeah, yeah, that's right.
Awesome. Okay, so there aren't any other questions now. So I don't know if you had any more bits you wanted to cover off, Neeraj.
Yeah, let me have just continue with couple of more slides,
Yeah,
and
cool.
then feel free to drop in your questions. I'll have more. I'll take more towards the end of the session, but I have just couple of more slide.
Great.
So this is where I think we've launched the product, right? This is the photo that you've done where we've. I think I've met you, Jemmy, over there, right? In Singapore. So our
Yeah.
first launch was this was not that launch, but I think the first launch of the product that we did was just an email alert with a skeleton of code, right? So what I'm trying to say is that uh, with in your early journey, it is a lot better than going with an idea to essentially just build an MVP and show some proof of concept, show some customer testimonial to gain trust from your investors, as well as sell it to new customers, which is what we did, right? We've developed a very early MVP, shown the traction, shown the uh, 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 early validation before we actually went on to build the full product to launch, right? And I learned that the other thing is that building a product is a never ending journey. It The moment you get towards the end, you will know that there are 10 more things you would want to build. So don't wait for it to be perfect. Launch, build, and build with customers. Feedback is a gift. So you got to listen not just to your customer, but with everybody around you, adopt and keep improving. When we One of the interesting learnings that I had, right? I mean, I kept waiting for this launch uh, to really roll it out to the customer. We planned everything, and when we've launched our first open beta, we got over 100 signups very quickly, just in couple of months. We didn't expect, though we'd planned for it, that we would get that kind of number. But the other side is that after those 100 signup, most never returned. So so that was a setback. That was a setback, and that was tough. We and the point I'm trying to make is that don't wait for your product to be perfect. You got to launch, let your customers come and use it, and they will give you all the bad news that you really need to work on. uh, and so the more you delay, the more you are delaying that event to happen, because chances are that not all your customers are going to be happy. So you want to take it out to your customer. uh,
How,
so we
how did
kept
you
asking.
navigate that, Neeraj? Because that is tough, right? I mean, it's so exciting, I suppose, to have all of those potential businesses signing up in that sense.
Yes, I think it was a setback, but we knew, I think, once we've launched, and we knew that very quickly we went and spoke to those customers who are using. We had their details. We started talking to them, and they've given us their brutal feedback about it, that what is that they need to see more in the product. And we as a team also understood that what we need to improve. And as we kind of start working, and we've seen the adoption and retention is grown much better, right?
Brilliant. Yeah,
So going to your customer and talking to them is more important than making your perfect product, right? And lastly, there will be those tough days, but just look at your mission, look at the team, lean on to your community, and that will just keep you going. Important to celebrate your small wins, and just keep reminding yourself why you started, right? So this is really my last slide. Then I can take more questions if we have, but I think what was really tough for me is that taking the first step, coming out from the comfort and cushion. But I think what was very important and what I did is to do it intelligently, not emotionally. uh, uh, Keep your finances in check, know your strengths, understand what's your unique advantage is in the market that you are known for, and then build on it, right? Building a business is more than building just a product. It's about bringing that revenue in, getting the profitability done. So when you have clarity on these, and you can sustain the journey, you'll be able to do it way far better than many of us, right? So that's everything that I wanted to share, what I've learned so far, and I'm hoping this is useful for you. I'm excited to hear some of your stories as well. I mean, if you have something more to share from your learning, not just questions, please tell me. I'm all ears.
Yeah, absolutely. Just we do have another question, so we'll go through that in a second. But just for those on the call, if you want to raise your hand and feel free to share any of your own experiences, I think it will help obviously everybody to kind of just give their own point of view because I think probably the one that we hear the most of what you just mentioned, which is that almost that fear of getting started and overthinking it really, having that
Yeah,
it is difficult, I guess, your anxiety might kick in or you get the kind of imposter feeling of like, oh,
yeah,
is it going to fail, whatever it is no one going to like it.
yeah. I think the
And
one.
then yeah. Sorry,
Sorry, go ahead, Jamie. Yeah,
I was gonna say, and then reality, I at least we found is that a lot of that's in your head. The reality is actually if you've got something of value,
hmm,
people will connect with that.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. And I think in my case, which I didn't mention, but I want to tell you that story while we pick up any other story from the audience, is that, I mean, when I left this for the first 6 months, I actually spoke with many coaches around it. And they kept telling me that, hey, Neeraj, your real calling is to do something of your own. But listening to them, I still kept going back and giving interviews to find and get back to the work, right? Though my real calling was where people who have been talking and giving me advices as to you need to do something because that's what you really want, and this is what
Mm.
your heart says. And looking back now and seeing what is how happy and fulfilling is this, I think that it was the right decision to make. So I
Yeah,
think
that's
more
tough as
often
well.
though not than not, I think while you want to be smarter about and intelligent about, one, checking around your family, your support system, your finances, but listening to your heart as well. You don't want to be trapped in something that you don't want to do, and give your time and energy to something that you really believe in to build, right? So yeah.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to be sitting there and thinking like, oh, a year ago I could have been building this and really enjoying it and learning along the way as well. So yeah, I think got to
Yeah,
give it a go. Just got to give it a go and see. The worst case is that you try it, it doesn't work. Maybe you tweak it into something else, or you suddenly then go right. Okay, this isn't for me. Um, you'll have learned a lot from it, and that even in itself, even if
yeah,
that's not your intention, that can makes you very hireable as well to businesses
yeah,
because
yeah,
you've accumulated all these skills that you would get that you
yeah.
can then apply into other roles. So it's a win-win every way. It's just about being true to yourself.
Correct, correct. I agree.
We've got a couple of other questions in here, um, and then it'd be good to maybe see if anyone wants to pop their hand up as well. But so the first question says, in your early hiring, so I suppose it's coming back to the culture part. It says, are people keen to have like additional benefits and things? So the example they said was like something like insurance and how have you navigated with limited funding? So I guess if it's bootstrapped, I suppose, and then trying to make sure that everybody's taken care of, I guess, that in that vein.
Yeah, that's right. I think that's a great question, and it's a continuous thinking that we do, right? The one thing we did well is being honest with the people that you want to work with, and you don't want to essentially give them a hope that you can't meet. So that's really important. The second is do your best that to take care of the people. It isn't necessarily, if you are not offering an insurance plan that for the regular corporate, what you can do more, right? You can create an ESOP plan. You can create an ESOP plan for your early employee that to make them excited about, motivated to build something together. Uh, so that's where I think you got to think about is what are the trade-offs that you want to make. Uh, to bring the right people in, right? Few people get excited with the benefits that you could offer, but there are people who get excited with the equity that you want to offer to kind of bring in, or there are people who can just be excited by giving them a market compensation that they want to come in and work with you, right? So you got to make that judgment. In my case, I think early on, even today, most people that work with, we have a very exciting ESOP plan that we kind of offer to the people, and we believe that's the best way to bring in early people who are fully motivated to build something together and becomes a wealth creator in future than any
Mhm.
other benefit that they look to create the safety net.
Yeah, I like that. I think everybody's motivated in a different way, and the best thing to do is have a conversation with them early on and say, like, what is it that really drives you? Because some people it's that recognition. Some people it might be they really want to be involved in decision making or building or something like that. Other
Yeah,
people they kind of say, look, my expertise is kind of getting something off the ground, but I'm not necessarily the one to build out the whole team in that sense. And so again, you could be realistic about would that person maybe want to be in an ESOP plan? Maybe not, because for them it's more a case of like I'm here to kind of you know get the launch, but then actually as long as I'm helping out, then maybe I can do something else after that. So it's yeah, I think it feels like you as a founder that you have those kinds of conversations with the team and find out what motivates them and deliver something for them based on that.
correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So the last question, which is, they said, appreciate the frank sharing, the honesty from your side, and they said, could you tell us briefly about Third Eye's product mission? So I guess a little bit more about Third Eye for those who maybe are less aware of the business.
Yeah, thanks. That's a great question I was waiting for. So yeah, I think we operate in a marketing at the intersection of marketing and AI. We are building a solution that gives, especially when you are early stage, growth stage, navigating your marketing problem, and the moment you reach out to your right customers online and spend your hard dollars, you struggle to understand how these consumers are engaging with your content, with your ads, what should be your right uh, audience to target. This is where our solution kind of comes in, where we offer this AI automation solution that let your marketing campaign automate some of these marketing activities, and it gives you unique insights and recommendations using AI and machine learning to let you understand what your audience are doing with your ad and content to make the decision faster. So that's one part of the business where it's a SaaS solution that you can go and use it. And then the second part of the business is also should you need more of the marketing services that you today cannot hire in-house, and you need more seasoned uh, professionals come at a fractional cost, is where we kind of work with these brands to help and take them from where they are to the next level before they hire their in-house team.
Brilliant. Yeah, and for full transparency, we are also users of your solution. It's great, and I think it's just useful. I think a lot of businesses dabble in marketing efforts, right? Especially in the early phase. And this is for anyone who on the call is a founder or those who are considering starting a business. Like it's not always the first port of call to say, right, we're going to hire a marketing manager or someone like that in that sense, because the feeling is that there are other maybe revenue generating departments that they would focus their efforts on. But the reality is you also need to be, you need customers to find you and come to you and all those things as well. And so if you're going to run certain ad campaigns, then you want to make sure that you're not, burning through your budget, because every dollar is so precious in that sense. So I think, what you guys are doing is very important. And it's great also to harness the kind of the human intelligence and experience along with the automation and the AI that's happening now as well to just do it faster, which is really cool. So yeah, that's great. And then did you want to talk about the other part, or is that still in sort of stealth mode for now, the bits that we were talking about earlier?
Oh, that part is still in stealth, but I can briefly talk
Okay,
about it.
sure.
Uh, so I think what we've heard is a lot more about marketing technology, but we are also definitely building a voice AI agent. That agent is like a human-like experience for those who wants to reach out to their customers. When the use case is like you want to learn more about what your customer felt about your product or service, it can give you a immediate a call and get captured the feedback. Any kind of service that today humans are spending a lot of time and energy and you can't scale up, whether it's appointment booking, taking a customer service call, giving them a call to remind on something, this AI voice agent can do. In fact, we have seen cases where it can do a lead qualification where generally account managers or SDR spending ton of time only talking to less qualified or low qualified leads. So it can do the job where your team can kind of spend more time on high quality lead. And there can be various use cases. Uh, Happy to give more detail if anyone wants to know more. You have my email ID. We can talk more.
Brilliant. Yeah, I mean, just off the back of that, I had a question just because I mean, we get asked about it a lot now. I was talking to somebody earlier, like in a back and forth on LinkedIn, and I was just sort of saying, like, I can't remember a topic that sort of generated such excitement and interest in a positive way. Obviously, negative would have probably been people talking about COVID and pandemic and things like that, which kind of took over the world in a sense for a while. But this is a positive one. It's kind of people saying, okay, what can I do with it, and so on. So my question to you was, is there like one resource, be it podcast, YouTube channel, website, whatever it is, where you've found really useful ways to kind of learn more about AI in that sense? I guess it's so that those on the call members, might have another a port of call to look at to learn themselves.
Yeah, I think online is definitely one way which essentially you can discover a lot. But I think I actually learn a lot more by surrounding myself with the right folks around me, being part of some of the relevant communities, going and attending some of the leading conferences and event where we talk a lot more progressive stuff. Uh, so that's where I've actually get to understand a lot more cutting edge stuff that's happening on. So I do go and kind of participate in various demo sessions that companies are
Mm.
building, whether it's been kind of hosted by Accelerator or few other communities who does. Whenever I get a chance, I kind of go and attend and participate. Yeah.
Great. Yeah. I think it's good. And then, like we said earlier, it's a great way to meet potential customers and or people who can give you feedback as well. So has
Absolutely.
got some
Absolutely.
answers.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Okay. Well, I think we're pretty much on time, which is great. Thank you so much, Neeraj, for sharing all your insights as well. Really appreciate it. I think it's been fantastic. Do you want to just maybe pop up the slide again so people can find you as well, just in case anyone
Yes.
forgot to note that down?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think
There we go. Yeah.
yeah, that's my email. Feel free to drop a note. You can easily find me on LinkedIn. But before I wrap up, I really want to thank Jemmy and Duo Circle for building this community for India. I think I know him and Duo Circle from my journey at Singapore, where it has been Singapore or a Southeast Asia itself is a country in itself, right? And each of these
Yeah.
countries are a cities and highly diverse. And And a community like this has really helped us to understand each of these regions, the nuances of doing business in each of these regions much better, whether right from finding a right space to work with, or doing a legal compliance, finance compliance, or even registering an entity. And I'm glad that you are now kind of entering and building this community from India for India, and kind of helping many of us to navigate this. And I'm hoping that you will have a ways where you can help this part of the world to know better the other part of the world a lot more than
Yeah.
what we know today. Yeah. Thank you so
It's
much.
such an exciting market. You know, it really truly
Yeah.
is. Like there's so much growth potential. I think I saw one statistic. I need to make sure I get the statistic right, but it's something like by the year 2030, there will be um, more folks of a working age in India. So going from a student journey into a working journey than like the US, Brazil, Indonesia, and a couple of other markets all combined. And so there's just such a phenomenal opportunity there for people with creativity, innovation, entrepreneurial spirit. We're already seeing some fantastic businesses globalizing now in India as well. And I think it's just going to keep going. And I think what's really nice as well is it feels like a market which is really open to the world in that sense, where maybe there's a couple of other markets in the world that seem a little bit more closing off in that sense. And so I think that's also really exciting. So yeah, we're here for the long term, and we know there's already 15 million freelancers, for example, in India that you know have great services to offer and experience to give. So yeah, we'll be there. We really appreciate we're working with you and the members here.
Thanks so much, Jamie. Thanks for
Good
this.
stuff. Okay, thanks everyone. See you
Thank you.
next Thursday. We'll I think some of you probably would have already got the email about the session next Thursday as well. So feel free to join. The link will be pretty much the same as the one that you see today. But yeah, we've got a lot of topics coming in. If there's any suggestions as well, please feel free to pop us a note either through the Luma page, or you can send it directly to us as well, for topics that you'd like to touch on as well. So great.
Thank
Thanks,
you. Thanks.
Neeraj. Have a good
Bye.
afternoon. Bye, everyone.